Welcome back. So, how powerful exactly is the Israeli army? So, that's a great question. When I was a kid, one of the things we used to talk about in school was how powerful is this army? And there used to be talks of these mighty warriors. We believed that an Israeli soldier could beat three of any other type of army soldiers. They could beat three Americans, three Russians, three whatever, and that their information was flawless and that they had technology way, way ahead of their time. And it was amazing how our imaginations took us on this wild ride. And I think that's what every kid in the yeshiva, you know, Jewish school system believed, that the Israelis were just indestructible. They were like inhuman. Now, what's interesting is as this war evolves and we see unfortunate deaths, we see challenges, we see there were flaws in the technology when the Hamas militants were able to break through the wall. It took them time to come down while the massacre was taking place. So many things that make you wonder, is this really a super army? But what it does do at the same time is it makes you wonder about a couple of things that all of a sudden, now that you see them more as human, in a way you have more respect for them. Let's put things into perspective. Okay, now that they're having trouble with Yemen, let's use Yemen because it's a small country as an example. Yemen is 25 times almost the size of Israel. Israel's army is a little short of 200,000. Yemen has about 65,000 in their army. Now, what's interesting is that America's army is only about double the size of Israel's army at about 400 or 400,000 or so actual soldiers, between 4 and 500,000. Russia has a little over 800,000. Um, and then you have an incredible amount of reservists in Israel's army, over 500,000. The thing is, though, to be fair, um, you have to go to the army in Israel. It's a reserve army, and it's a mandatory army. So they have an incredible amount of numbers when it comes to ratio of how many soldiers are in the army, and they have an incredible number of reservists. So, in fact, for a tiny, tiny country, they have an enormous army. Now, the reason I bring this up is because maybe some maturing on my part since I was 9 years old, maybe some wake up calls based on what's going on. But it's really interesting to analyze how powerful exactly is Israel's army. And as we see the death count mounting up, we're already over 60 soldiers dead in this operation in Gaza, unfortunately. And we see all these terrible things that happen. We see that Israel is anything but indestructible. But in its destructibility, you see something that's very, very incredible, and that's a perseverance. And this perseverance comes from their faith in what they do. Now, I'm not going to give a whole lecture on Judaism in relation to the army. I'm not going to pretend that this is a religious state and that everybody is strict and very, very conservative to the rules of God, etc., by however you want to, judge that. But what I will say is that Israel has something that is glaring right now, and that's pick me up. You know, when people are going out to war, so they need to have a certain level of confidence. I mean, it's a scary time, and they have to go in there. You see these people that are dying come from specific divisions, which means it hits home to their brothers in those platoons and in those groups and in those specific parts of the army, and they have to get up the next day. But before they even went out to fight, all the Jews that were in Israel and around the world stood behind them. And with all the hate and all the anger that everybody has against us, what they're missing is a little bit of a lesson in the fact that Israel is so mighty because it has unity. We might not agree on everything. We disagree on most things. That's how it is. But when it comes to the army, everybody realizes the value of life, contrary to what many people have bias in a completely different respect. We actually have an incredible respect for human life, our own, others. Just take a look at what's going on in Gaza, how the soldiers are making themselves human shields against people that were using the same citizens as human shields for them. The fact is that going into the war, we prepared the soldiers with a lot of love, a lot of preparation. Coming home, they have a lot of moral support from within the army, from without the army. And this does something for a person. All of a sudden, you stop thinking about soldiers as these indestructible, yeah, Israeli soldiers. Remember, it was a thing, Krav Maga, they can beat anyone. Okay, sure. But at the end of the day, when a person is down, and they don't have good moral environment, morale. I apologize. That's a big problem. That's where we come in, and that's where Israel comes in as an incredibly powerful army, because it's an army of brothers. Like, the show Band of Brothers should have been recorded in Israel, not America. Because don't get me wrong, America certainly has their band of brothers, but it's within a group, within a platoon, within a certain station. In Israel, it's within an entire country. And I would go so far as to say that most people, if they don't know each other, they know somebody that knows somebody, because it's a small country and they care. My friends that are out there, they say they're not only struggling with the fear of their kids being put in harm's way, but they're dealing with the fact that their friends, their neighbors' kids are in harm's way. No matter where you look, if a soldier dies, even if it's not your own kid, but it's somebody you know's kid. So it's very, very important to them. And the support, I mean, the outpouring of money and love and support. There's so much here that the world could learn from the Israeli army and its support system in just wasting their time hating. They're just hurting themselves. The only people that are getting hurt are the ones that aren't realizing that this army is like a light into the nations. We have the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah coming up, Hanukkah, however you want to say it. And we have certain things that we do that, just like everybody, but I'm going to be biased and say there are things we do that the world can learn from. And there's too much hate for a lot of people, the ones who should be learning the most, to pick up on the love and support and morale that we boost our soldiers with. Anyways, so is Israel the strongest army in the world? I don't know, but I know God is the most powerful. And if God chooses, I know God chooses one thing overall, and that's called achdus, unity. My rabbi taught me that. Unity. When you work as a unity, as a group, when you love each other and you have a common goal and you care about your brother and your sister as much as yourself, you'll succeed over that other guy. God bless you.